Okay. All right, we're going to go ahead and call our meeting to order. This is our regular town council meeting of August 5th, and we have the privilege of having Troop 1882 that's going to do the pledge, but first we'll do our roll call vote, please. A roll call.
Shannon?
Here.
Leak?
Here.
Campy?
Here.
Leak?
Here.
Edwards? Cavazos? Here. Day?
Here.
Great. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, we're going to have the troop lead us. Great. Thank you all very much. If we could continue standing, we have our invocation from Reverend Mark Olson from Haymarket Baptist Church that maybe you can just give us an update on the church, sir, and then lead us into our prayer.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, very much. Things are going very well at the church. We're not on? Now I'm on. Thank you very much, Kevin. Things are going very well. We have just hired Mr. Ken Trammell as the new music director. He's a public music teacher from the Loudoun County Schools who has just moved to the Haymarket area. And he's the first African-American we've ever employed on our staff. And he's just really energized the church. Our preschool and kindergarten has just won the award again for best in Haymarket. And the Haymarket Police continue to do a marvelous job sending an officer every Sunday morning. And we're thrilled for Kevin's staff. They're doing a super job. We also have the 125th anniversary of our church coming up on September 15th. So a big day for us.
Great.
Please bow with me.
Sure. And Pastor, if you could also remember the victims. We've had a lot of tragedies this week.
Yes. Yes.
And so if you could keep them in your thoughts and prayers there too.
Absolutely. I will thank you very much, Mayor.
Yep.
Father, we gather for this meeting, but we do lift up folks in El Paso, Texas, and Dayton, Ohio, who are grieving deeply at the loss of loved ones and injuries to many others. We pray that you would bring some sort of healing to our land and provide a path forward for us that we might not have these shootings in the future. We pray that you would bless each woman and each man on the town council. Give them your guidance. Let them have ears to hear one another as we debate honestly and fairly with people we sometimes disagree with. Let us remember that each one in this room is a child of God. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you, Tripp, for giving us our pledge there. Thank you. Our next item on our agenda is our public hearing that we continued open. So at this time, if anybody would like to speak on that, this would be the time. Now, we will have citizens' time later as well. So this would be just our public hearing regarding our budget amendment that we left open from our last meeting. So if there is anyone that'd like to speak with that. And seeing none and with no objection, I'm going to go ahead at this time close our public hearing regarding the budget amendment. All right. Just a little bit of housekeeping on our agenda tonight. After citizens' time, I would like to add from our police department, our crosswalk presentation that Chief will be doing, and that would be right after citizens' time and before the presentation from Anne Marie that will be here from Prince William Tourist Department, that she's going to do our presentation for that. So with that, our consent agenda, as we spoke in our work session, I would entertain at this point a motion to move to approve our consent agenda.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve our consent agenda.
I second.
Okay. Seconded by Councilman Shannon. Any discussion on this?
And Ms. Cavazos had any questions, I just want to make
I'll
sure.
abstain since I wasn't here for any of it.
Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and at this time, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed? And then we will have one abstention for the record. Correct, Mrs. Cavazos? Yes, and one abstention. Okay, our next item, we will have our citizens' time. let's go ahead and do our crosswalk presentation. I just want to make sure we get that out there first.
Okay, good evening, Council. So we've noticed that we've had a lot of problems with, while Emily gets that queued up, I'll talk about it, with crosswalk safety. We've had a lot of people being, saying that they're unsafe in the crosswalk, that they're almost getting hit, and drivers not really sure what they're supposed to do, pedestrians not sure what they're supposed to do. So we wanted to make a video that would educate the driving public and the pedestrian public. So, of course, we got with Frank from Bang & Gears, who does all of our videos for us, and Officer O'Neill took charge of that, and we're going to show you the end result. And once that you're seeing it first today from anybody, and once you guys see it, then we'll post it on our Facebook page starting tomorrow. And this is generic enough to where we can just post it like once every quarter or anytime we have a problem, just to address the crosswalk issue in the walking town, just so we can focus on making this the walking town that you guys want.
Allison, thank you so much for taking us to Phillips Homes today. We desperately need something bigger. You're so very welcome, Brittany. It was a lot of fun. I just wish that your husband would have been able to join us today. I know. I think he wasn't here. He had a big meeting at work, but I promise to show him the listing when he gets home from work tonight. Especially the lighthouse and the Noah's event. I really like that one. What is it? Okay, well, as soon as Mommy finishes talking, we'll look at something to eat, okay? Allison, I'm sorry, but we really need to go.
I understand.
Thank you again, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, have a great day.
Bye. Hi, honey, how's work? We saw a ton of houses. I cannot wait for you to see them. There's one that I really love. They're great. We're leaving the real estate office now. Okay, honey, I know. I love you, and I'll give you a call when I get home tonight. Okay, honey, we're going to the car.
Oh, I love this song, honey. Crosswalks. They can be a nightmare for pedestrians and it can cause confusion for some drivers. Hello, I'm Officer O'Neill with the Town Haymarket Police Department. I'm here today with some safety advice for dealing with crosswalks, both a pedestrian and a driver. Did you know that a pedestrian is killed in a traffic accident every 88 minutes in the U.S.? According to Virginia Statute 46.2-94, as a pedestrian, you are required to look both ways before stepping into a crosswalk. This ensures that drivers have enough time to stop so you can safely cross. As a driver approaching a pedestrian crosswalk, you need to be aware of pedestrians and come to a complete stop as they pass across your lane of travel. We live in a world of technology and distraction. We are constantly challenged by them. Be vigilant, always be aware of your surroundings. We want to make sure everyone gets home safe. Yes, Madison? What's up, honey? Are you really hungry now? Okay, well, come on. It's been a long day, so we'll go get some food, okay? On behalf of the Town Haymarket Police Department in Madison, we'd like to thank you for watching our PSA video today. We hope everybody has a safe afternoon. Bye.
Okay, on behalf of the police department, I'd like to thank Corey. He did a great job putting this together. Corey's going to step forward, tell you a little bit about it, and introduce our actors. And go ahead, Corey.
Evening, Council, Mr. Mayor. It was a great production. Thank you so much to Frank for all the good ideas and so forth. There's a few people in the audience. We have Melissa, Allison, and Shannon from the Remax. If they could stand up for me. Or at least be recognized. Come on. They put in a lot of work. They gave us their office for most of the morning so we get this stuff done. Of course, the stars of the video. We have Brittany, we have Madison, and we have Mason.
Yeah.
So they took their time and stuff like that. Franks, thanks so much for putting this together and so forth. We're hoping this is going to be a definite impact for the area people be aware, see what's going on and so forth like that. As a matter of fact, the day we were doing this, actually the day prior, we actually wrote a few citations for that crosswalk that we did the video in, where people were disregarding pedestrians. So we thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Officer
So-
O'Neill.
Great job.
So this will, again, I'll post this tomorrow morning, and we'll run it for a while and repost it every time we have an issue or a problem, okay? And I know you passed over the police department consent agenda. I just want to say we have National Night Out tomorrow from 5:30 to 8:30 at QBE. Please come out and support the police department as we throw a party for the community, where the community can come meet their officers. I'll be in a dunking booth for a couple hours where you can come dunk me. We have bounce houses, kid zones, free food from Mission Barbecue, and swirlies, and a snow cone maker. And am I missing anything else? DJ live music, and I think Dogs Day Out is coming with a pen area for, I think they're going to have some puppies, some Great Dane puppies for the kids to be able to play with. So we're hoping that'll go over well. So please come out and support us tomorrow at QBE from 5:30 to 8:30, National Night Out.
Great. Thank you, Chief. Wonderful job there, as always. Go ahead, Councilman
You
Shannon.
did mention the chief will get dunked many times.
If you're good enough to dunk me.
Oh, I can just walk up and hit it, like I did last year.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's a great event, though, so.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. We also have another presentation. I'd like to go ahead and take the time, and then we'll do citizens' time after that. We have the privilege of having Anne Marie Mayer, that is with Prince William County Tourism Department. I want to thank you. Thank you for coming, and I understand you have a presentation to give us regarding tourism in Prince William County and their town.
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Again, Anne Marie Mayer. I'm the Director of Tourism for Prince William County. I am also a resident of Haymarket. I've lived here for almost 10 years since I relocated from the Philadelphia area. So this town is near and dear to my heart and my children's hearts. So Mayor Leek, thank you for inviting me, members of Town Council. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm going to take a few moments just to talk about what the Office of Tourism does and how that benefits the businesses and the residents of Haymarket. So the first page here, or slide, talks a little bit about where our focus is. So there's 4 focus areas. We focus on marketing and media outreach, group sales, tourism development, and visitor experiences. So we'll talk a little bit about what we do in those 4 areas. But first, I'd like to talk about what tourism in Prince William County means. So according to the Virginia Tourism Corporation, through a annual study that they do, Prince William County is one of the top 10 in the Commonwealth for tourism. We get $592 million annually in visitor expenditures and $35 million annually in tax receipts. We have about 9.5 million visitors to Prince William County, people that are coming in for our restaurants, distilleries, breweries, fun, nice, walkable towns like Haymarket. And there's over 6,000 jobs that are supported by the tourism industry. Our efforts and the money that tourism brings in to the county results in about $235 per county taxpayer in savings. So one of the things that has grown exponentially since I've been here is our hotel inventory. There are 45 hotel properties in the county. We have 27 on the I-95 corridor and 18 on the I-66 corridor. Includes 4,600 hotel rooms. And this results in transient occupancy tax revenue that comes into the county, and about 2/3 of that goes toward tourism and getting more visitors into the county. One of the reasons why tourism is so important is that it brings benefits to our residents. So if it wasn't for the visitors that are coming in, some of your favorite restaurants, favorite shopping areas would not be able to be sustained just by residents alone. Go to the next slide. Our mission statement is the Prince William County Office of Tourism inspires travelers to visit the county by promoting, developing, and enhancing experiences, thereby contributing to a robust economy and creating opportunities for residents. And you can go to the next slide. The transient occupancy tax, as I mentioned, in the county has grown over the past 5 fiscal years. It's almost $1 million more than it was 5 years ago annually. So the county's collecting almost $4.6 million in transient occupancy revenue. This is the tax that visitors pay when they stay in our hotels. Our budget is up to $1.5 million of that. Another big portion of the tax, a third of it goes to the general fund, but the other portion of the tax for tourism goes to our historic sites. So we have some priorities that I have listed. I won't go through one line by line, but I'll talk a little bit about some of the focuses. Marketing is a big focus area, and we do that through our website. So visit pwc.com. If you haven't been on there, please check us out. One of the most popular things that residents like about our website is our weekend roundup. You may have seen that out where we list everything that there is to do in the county. Every weekend we usually post it out on Thursdays, and it's really shined a light on all of the activities that there are. Some of the marketing strategies are listed there. On the next slide, we have our marketing plan and what we're planning to do with that money. I've met with many of the town businesses, attended the business association meetings and done presentations. We'd love to talk to town businesses about how to capitalize, especially on the group tour aspect. There are many bus tours that come in. You probably have seen them come unannounced to McDonald's when you're just trying to get in there and get something. But we work with other restaurants and areas. The Fox 5 Zip Trip that came in, that was a direct effort of the Office of Tourism reaching out to Fox 5 and getting them to come out again. We've been trying to get them every year. Last year they were in Gainesville, this year they were in Haymarket. And it was wonderful to see how the town looked, on television, and all the businesses and the employees of the town that helped us with that. It was amazing. Next, we have our group sales, as I mentioned. Group tours are coming in here. We've got a lot of student tour groups that come in. Also military reunions and just adult groups as well, international visitors. So we have 2 people on our team that just focus on that. Then tourism development is an area that we're really focusing on, and this is basically bringing in new tourism opportunities that weren't here before. So one of the big focuses is on sports tourism. As you know, Tough Mudder was here at Silver Lake Park this past year. Hopefully they'll be coming back at another venue next year if we can find one. But it was a huge boon to the area. Many businesses, especially in Haymarket, benefited from that. We want to grow with other opportunities like soccer tournaments, so our residents aren't driving to Richmond or driving, to other areas. We, make it more convenient and less expensive for our residents to stay here and do tournaments. So that's a big focus area. And then, of course, we have the Steins, Vines, and Moonshine Trail. There's 20 breweries, distilleries, and wineries in Prince William County, and that has grown more than double since I've been here. So it's definitely an area of growth, and it's also another focus area with agritourism that we can find ways to protect our open spaces and provide farming opportunities for businesses or tourism opportunities to keep those land areas open. And then visitor experience is the last area. So we operate a visitor center in the town of Occoquan. And we're also looking at doing pop-up visitor centers. So when Haymarket has Haymarket Day, we want to be out there with our pop-up visitor center, and also capturing the data on who's coming here. So for FY21, I mentioned our budget increased over $200,000 in FY21. So we're at about $1.5 million. And on the next slide, we have some of the budget initiatives that we're looking at: understanding our customer better, tourism wayfinding. So when you get off of 66, you get off of 95, a lot of people don't even know where they are. So there's no gateway signage. Welcome to Prince William County. Welcome to Haymarket. This is where you are. Some unified messaging throughout the county that could help people navigate through. Even our own residents, don't know what's in their own backyard. So that'll be nice. And then increasing our advertising and doing a signature event that showcases everything that the county has to offer. So these are some of the areas that we're working on. It's a pleasure to serve Prince William County and the residents of Haymarket, and I would love to entertain any questions that you may have.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for a great presentation there. So you mentioned about the TOT tax. So for Prince William County, it's a percentage, I assume, and what is the percentage? Do you know if?
So out of the, I guess, 4.6 million that's collected in this past fiscal year, let me just double check that. Yeah, 4.6 million. Prince William County takes 1/3 of that, and that goes directly to the general fund.
Okay, and the percentage that they charge the occupants would be 7% or 8 or?
So it's 7% is the total percentage of transient occupancy tax that a guest pays, and the 2% of it goes to Northern Virginia transportation. Okay, and then that other 5% goes directly to the county.
Understood. Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions for Emery? Councilman Lee?
And that 4.6 million is just the 5%. We're not calculating that the county
total
collects. Yeah.
Understood. Okay. Obviously, great. Other questions? None? All right. Thank you. Thank you very
so
much
much.
for coming out. Absolutely.
Thank you. Oh, yes.
Yeah, we just need a mic anytime we're on.
Okay, you wanna-
You were saying that the tax, 1/3 of it goes to Prince William County. If the hotel were inside the town of Haymarket and not in the county, where would that go?
So 1/3 would go to the general fund of the town, and then 2/3 would go toward the town's budget area that would, promote tourism.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Emery. Okay. Next, we'll bring up our citizens' time. This would be a chance for our citizens to speak. I might have another citizens' time, too, because we have a lot of things going on tonight that this would be a chance for anyone that would like to speak, if they could just state their name and address for the record. Yeah.
Dottie Leonard, 14801 Washington Street. I already brought this subject up with the ARB as well as the Planning Commission, but I wanted to, and some of you have heard it before because you were on those, but I wanted to say it here before the council that I've had a couple of people mention to me that the town was evolving, and at least one of the people I respect the most has said that to me recently. And I just wanted to remind people that with a historic overlay, you don't evolve. When the historic overlay was set, it was set in place for a specific reason, and that was to preserve the period of time that the town was founded, which was 1799 forward. And the women of the Historic Commission who voted and chose colonial as the theme did that because that was what was left at that period of time. And they wanted to allow continued colonial look, like the colonial look continues in Williamsburg, continues in Fredericksburg, continues in a lot of historic towns. So even though we're evolving and we can evolve inside our properties, what the ARB should be protecting is that colonial theme. We have colonial designed brick sidewalks. We have colonial streetlights. So when the ARB approves something that is more contemporary, it doesn't fit with what's already here. The intent was not to save every single structure that looked like a boulder had fallen on the roof and caved it in. The intent was to allow more development, prayerfully, hopefully, have the town finish, as we're slowly doing, but finish with the same theme in mind. If anybody ever wanted to change that, then the historic overlay has to go away. And if the historic overlay goes away, the teeth through which you control what people do also goes away. That's what we were told by our legal counsel then. We declared the historic overlay to save the town and have one theme and one design that would work. So I just wanted to remind everybody of that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Peg Contrusi, and that we have submitted 2 letters to you, but I would like to read them to you and for the public. We are addressing, I'm speaking for myself and my husband, we are addressing your deliberation tonight about the ARB appeal on the demolition permit of 6706 Jefferson Street. So this is my letter. Over the last 30 years, I've owned and managed property in the town of Haymarket. I personally have renovated 5 older properties in Haymarket that my husband and I own in whole or in part. The old bank building, the old post office on Jefferson Street, and 3 Washington Street properties. I've also managed major renovations and restorations, or determined that such efforts would be ill-advised in New Jersey, Pittsburgh, and Prince William County. I fully understand the processes, complexities, and challenges of rebuilding and maintaining old structures, and I have the scars to prove it. Based on the assessments prepared by the applicant and the town, I do not believe the structure at 6706 Jefferson Street, when realistically evaluated, merits the time, expense, and uncertain endgame that would be involved in restoring or moving it. In fact, I believe in all probability that such an endeavor would be doomed to fail once commenced. Steep investments in time and money could be lost for no readily identifiable purpose. There are no plaques or roadside signs because the structure has no historic significance other than its age. My family and I have invested in Haymarket, upgraded property, and operated businesses here. All the while, several neighboring properties have continued to degrade into unsightly and dangerous shambles, some in part due to the worthy but unrealistic goal of preserving a historic atmosphere. Unfortunately, sometimes such efforts mean that what is preserved has produced the exact opposite result from what is desired, and which does not enhance the town but actually diminishes it. I respectfully submit the town fortunately has the capacity to achieve its goal by other means. And because you all won't be making a decision on this in a vacuum, although I know this is not before the town council tonight, I'd like to talk about what happens after the demolition. The demolition of the structure at 6706 Jefferson Street is necessary to allow the applicant to redevelop the area collectively known as the Payne Lane property for Hilton Garden Inn in a timely and cost-effective manner. Haymarket has striven mightily over the last few decades to turn itself into a walkable village with boutiques, cafes, artisans' shops, and the like. In my opinion, a major implement has been that there just aren't enough residents and visitors within walking distance to support commercially these concepts year-round. The commercially desirable in-town Payne Lane property, which has thus far been passed over, now presents a new opportunity to bring a critical number of visitors who will be looking for restaurants, shops, and services within a few blocks of the inn. It will create the economic catalyst essential to support exactly what the town has envisioned for itself. In summary, I respectfully urge the council to approve the demolition permit for 6706 Jefferson Street and enthusiastically welcome the Hilton Garden Inn. This is my husband's letter. He's an attorney. Oh, I'm a real estate broker. I should have told you that. He's an attorney. Dear Mr. Mayor, I have been an active member of the Haymarket business community for over 3 decades, owning multiple properties and businesses in the town, and representing as an attorney and trustee large land and business owners. It has come to my attention that the council will consider the appeal of an ARB decision to deny a demolition permit for a property at 6706 Jefferson Street. I am familiar with the property, having represented prior longtime owners and participated in site planning, the redevelopment and sale of what is now known as the Payne Lane development. Then and now, I have not been made aware of any specific historic significance for this property, other than the fact that it is currently over 50 years old and thus classified as historic under town ordinances. With all due respect, in my opinion, the structure is a derelict, irreparable eyesore which represents the liability of the neighborhood as well as the town, although the requested demolition permit should be, accordingly, the requested demolition permit should be mercifully granted. That aside, the structure inexplicably may, perhaps temporarily, stand in the way of the redevelopment of a major portion of a town block into a Hilton Garden Inn. The iconic Hilton brand is globally renowned and revered. It is a prestigious and distinguished tribute to any area selected for one of its flagships. Hilton is known for working hand in hand with the community to seamlessly assimilate with its history, traditions, culture, architectural aesthetics, and overall goals. It is a compelling win-win solution for Haymarket and Hilton, like the great country star Kenny Chesney says, and that's something that just don't happen twice. Haymarket was founded around the concept of an inn, the Red House Ordinary. It is timely to permit the past to merge proudly and prominently with the present by welcoming substantial new investment that aesthetically honors the town's history and ensures the bright future. I respectfully urge the council to approve the applicant's appeal of the ARB decision and unanimously and with well-founded enthusiasm order the issuance of the requested demolition permit.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Absolutely. Anyone else that would like to speak?
Mike Cerny, Foster's Grill, 4432 Costello Way. Mr. Mayor, council members, appreciate your service and everything you do for the community and the businesses. Obviously, you all know I don't come here that often, but when I do, it's something that's on my mind, and I just want to echo one of my partner's comments here as in relation to the Hilton Garden Inn coming to town here, hopefully. The Hilton name is a global, well-known name across the world. I mean, what better concept to come to Haymarket to build what everybody here has been striving to do, create a walking, livable town. I've been involved in Haymarket for 15 years, and I've heard the same things over and over again, what everybody is trying to accomplish. But all I've seen in my 15 years is a Chick-fil-A and a CVS at the end of the street. Nothing coming down here. The house that's in question for demolition, unless George Washington or Thomas Jefferson slept there, I think it's time to move on to the present while preserving our past, and there's not a better way to do it than with the Hilton name behind it. I don't think that this town is going to get a better opportunity than what it's being presented through the Hilton name. Once that inn is in place, what it will do to create this walking environment, bring in tourists into town. I mean, Anne Marie's presentation was great, but we're not getting that. I mean, let's be realistic about it. Let's put a hotel that's here that can drive that tourism here throughout the year, frequent our businesses instead of going elsewhere, and create this walking town, which will only drive more retail businesses into this town, which would be great for everybody. It's more than just job creation and tax revenue. It's about putting Haymarket on the map. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments there. Is there any else? Anyone would like to speak at this time? If not, I'm going to go ahead and close citizens' time. Our next item on the agenda, due to the timing, we do have a site visit that's scheduled, and I don't want to lose daylight time just for safety and all the aspects that would have to do that with that. And if there's no objection, I move that we move to item number 6, which would be the 6706 Jefferson Street site visit. And just for clarification and for the council to know, as we won't be able to be here or be recorded as we go over and visit this, I would ask each member of our council that, as we've said many, many times, the Noah's Ark rule, that there can be 2, but there can't be 3, and definitely no one to be in hearing of the 2 people's conversation as we go and look at this. I don't see this happening or taking more than maybe 5 or 10 minutes at most to safely go across the street and view the building and then come back, and then we'll resume our agenda items here. So with that, we're going to go ahead and take a brief recess, and we'll be back. Thank you very much.
Hey, Mayor,
Okay, we're going to call our meeting back to order, noting the time it's almost 8 o'clock. Just took our site visit across the street. Our next item on our agenda is our budget amendment. We're on page 3 of the packet with a draft motion. If we remember correctly from our previous meeting, the numbers had to be adjusted. We extended our public hearing for any comments during that, and I think we're ready to entertain a motion there again. I think we're on page 3 with the draft motion, if I'm not mistaken.
Mr. Mayor, I'd be glad to. I move that Haymarket Town Council approve an amendment to the fiscal year 2019-2020 as designated on resolution number 2019-006 for town center renovations. And I move the Haymarket Town Council approve an amendment to the fiscal year 2019-2020 as designated on resolution number 2019-007 to amend the mills tax, business license tax, and fines revenue line items and debt service, general obligation to fund deputy manager position, salary, and benefits.
I second the motion.
Okay, second by Councilwoman Cavazos. Discussion on this motion? Councilman Lee.
Thank you, Mayor. I understand the need for it. I understand how we're needing to, for the staff position. I don't like where we're taking the money from. When we had the excess in funds, we stated that we were going to, some ideas were to reduce the real estate tax altogether. There wasn't consent to do that. Then it was, all right, well, let's pay down our current debt. So I don't like the mere fact that we're taking it from our current debt line item. Granted, I sat down with the town treasurer. I still think some of our projections are going to be low. I think that we'll have at least $45K in excess in the revenue line between fines and forfeitures, meals tax, and a couple other ones. So I feel that we will still be able to make a large chunk payment to our debt service, even though we're showing that we're reducing it by $51,000, which was the excess. I feel that we'll be able to make almost up 45 of that if the council sees fit later on down the road as revenues continue to come in and overproduce what we had actually projected. I just want to make sure that's noted.
For the record, understood. Any other comments or discussion on the motion? We could have a roll call vote, please, sir.
Shannon?
Yes.
Lee?
No.
Canty?
Yes.
Cavazos?
Yes.
Day?
Yes.
All right. Our next item on our agenda is the Prince William County Mobile Data Computer and Radio MOU. Just to give some people some background on this charge that Prince William County actually has been charging our Haymarket, charging the town for this MDC. This is basically a software that allows our computers in our cars to be able to talk with the Prince William County communication, be able to allow this data to be entered in. We can do traffic. When we do a traffic stop, this information can be quickly looked up in a computer versus the officer calling it in to a dispatcher, the dispatcher looking in a computer, and then calling back to the officer. This has been going on for many, many years. The county has been charging us in the beginning, I think, in the 10 or 12,000, I think, when I first originally heard about this. For approximately 3 years after becoming mayor, I didn't pay the bill. I felt that it was unjust for our tax citizens to pay this additional fee to the county. We worked with our representatives. We tried to work with the police department, previous councils. We even had an ad hoc committee where 2 council members then looked into being able to take some data maybe to the county to show that we are actually producing a service for the county, and then why should we be charged this fee. We spin that forward. We weren't able to work out anything with those with that committee. We spin it forward. We had Chief Lands come in, and I'll kind of like take it from there, Chief, and I'll let you speak on our joint efforts there as we continue to work for this solution.
So over the past 2 months, the mayor and I have been trying to get the parties back to the table and talk about this fee. What started it recently was the county hit us with another fee, $502 per radio. That's one on your side and one in your car per officer. So $1,004 per officer they wanted to tack on to charge us on top of the software fees. They're basically saying to connect to our service and talk to our radios and be on our system, you need to pay $502 per radio. So that's for us, that's about $8,000. That was in our small budget would hurt us. You would think 8,000 is small, but in our budget, it would hurt us. So that reopened it again. So the mayor and I started to sit down with the head of dispatch, with the head of the IT division of Prince William County Police Department, with the head of IT for Prince William County, and finally with the deputy county administrator. And what my message to them was, and the mayor's message was, if it's good enough for Steve, who lives in Gainesville, to pay his taxes to the county, and that covers their end, that citizen's end, to be able to use the radio system, then why isn't it good enough for Jason, who lives in Haymarket, who pays the same taxes to the county? Now, what was good for Steve isn't good for Jason. Jason now has to pay twice just to access the same system that a citizen in Gainesville gets for their taxes that they pay. And so we tried to get them to come off of we're all separate entities and get them to see that even though we're different towns, we're all citizens and residents of Prince William County, and we all pay the same taxes. And that's when they had said, if you want to go into when they say about, pay your fair share and how the triangle worked on that.
Sure. So they basically were trying to explain that, like, for example, these MDC charges that they look at, there again, you have to understand, it's the same pants. They're looking at the different pockets of the park police, the sheriff's department, the police department. So all these different entities within Prince William County, they're basically allocating these costs. But for the towns, for our 4 towns, they're actually then taking those same sort of cost and then charging the towns. So, for example, our last year budget, we put in there for just the MDCs $17,000, and then with this new radio thing that they were going to attempt to charge us, that would have been a total of $8,000. Then they're not finished yet. There is one other thing called an encryption that is about ready to happen with the radios, and with the chief, that was going to be an additional fee as well.
10 to 20.
Right, 10 to 20. So with that, we had a meeting there at the police station where we had the deputy county exec and I think the gentleman from IT.
The head of the Prince William County Department of Information and Technology.
Right, exactly, where we I think did a very strong case to them to explain to them just how we are such a benefit when we cross our town of Haymarket line and we go into Somerset and we help that lady that was in her closet with her children on 911 call for 23 minutes, that our officer was able to see that in his computer through this software and be able to respond and be first on the scene to assure the lady that the alarm that was going off, that there was no one in her house. And
the intruder was there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Apologies. Right. And it goes on. I mean, these are just one of, I could quote at least 6 different times of where we're either first or second on the scene outside. So we're really benefit the county, but yet you're billing us. So I think we had a strong enough presentation that I'm happy to report that Chief Bernard had called me and Chief Lands to advise us that the county will no longer be charging not only the MDCs, the radios, and we got Chief to include the encryption as well. So that's a major thing. But there again, working with the county executives on this was the key. And I thank you, Chief, for you pushing on your side, and me. I don't think there was any room but for them to better understand our position as a town, as well as the other towns as well. I don't know if you had any follow-up that you wanted to say.
No, I'd just like to thank you for heading this up. I was very passionate about it, and I got a little loud there in the meetings, and I had my diagrams and my hand gestures, and but it worked. We were able to get out of the bean counters who were in their office and just making decisions on money and actually speak to the leaders of the county and get them to see that these are all the same residents of this county,
Yeah.
not, we don't have our own separate residents.
So there again, I think something, as I said, years in the makings and finally a great end result. And thank you, Chief, for that as well. Any questions regarding that?
No, I remember us talking about this 2 years ago. When this and everything going through with the budget and everything else, that's awesome. It's nice that, they could realize and make that decision. I think that's awesome.
Next item I had here, a business manager position. As we know, we've received a packet of candidates that we will be discussing in executive session later on this evening. But I just wanted to have that as a placeholder to let the public know, and that we will be pursuing that. Next item is our DWI ordinance. If you remember right, this was in our continuation meeting where we first wanted to at least start the dialogue and bring to the council. We're on page 59 of our packet that I'll let you, Chief, explain, if anything, that further, if someone wasn't and hasn't been kept up with this.
So previously, the town had adopted several state ordinances or laws into our town ordinance, which allowed us to write those violations, mostly traffic violations, under the town code, which then would allow any fines or fees attached that the judge attaches to that to come back to the town and not to the state. The DUI law was not included in that, so I'm just bringing this forward for us to be able to include that and adopt it into our town code. Doesn't mean that we have to write it right away. Martin and I had a conversation today that I'll definitely follow up on and get some answers, but I think this is a good thing that would allow us to include this in our town code.
Okay. With that, I wasn't aware of any other. Does anything prevent us from go ahead and adopting this ordinance? Well, great. Then I'll entertain a motion at this time, if so desired of the council.
Mayor, do we have an ordinance number? I didn't recall seeing it. Like 2019-00.
46-8, it says ordinance to add
I
section.
understood, but the actual town ordinance.
Okay.
Or if legal's good with it, can we just read the top portion?
You could just read the top portion of the ordinance to add section 46-8.
Okay, perfect.
Through the word intoxicated.
Mayor, Mayor, I make a motion to approve ordinance to add section 46-8 to the town code relating to driving while intoxicated.
I second.
Motion been second. Any discussion on the motion? So is there like a period, like a 30-day period or something like that, that once this is adopted? Or does
it's
it go?
effective upon adoption.
Okay, great, okay. Didn't know that. Any further discussion on it? We have a roll call vote, please.
Shannon?
Yes.
Leak?
Yes.
Campy?
Yes.
Cavazos?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes. All right, great. Thank you all for that. Our next is our Finance Committee. As we've found that I think we'd like to bring that back. I wanted to see, before we tried to do it within staff hours, that way in the past it just seemed to work great with staff already having, for example, Roberto here. But I wanted to see if there's any members of the council that would like to be part of this committee. If so, if we can go ahead and formulate this committee.
Mayor, I'd be more than happy to go ahead and start this committee. I think this is key to being able to work with the town treasurer to have make us both be able to work with the town budget, making sure that we're keeping on track, as well as being able to bring any concerns to the town council. Anytime that a planning commission or ARB are needing funds for particular projects, they can bring it to the finance committee for us to be able to review and then bring to the town council for execution. But I really think it's major helpful in regards to coming around budget season, being able to get on the get the jump on it early and start the process in this fiscal, or excuse me, in 2019 for the next year's budget. But obviously, to have this committee, we would need a second second person on it, I believe you would have to have a minimum of 2
Yeah.
To have a committee?
to have a committee.
You can have a committee of 1.
Okay.
I would like
Well,
to
let's
have
let's
someone
see if
else on
we have other members that would possibly like to serve. And there again, we can make this flexible to where, if, as far as people's schedules, as we know, we all do different things. So we would work closely with Roberto and just see what date works for those members that are serving. So with
How
the-
often do we meet?
That's, of course, up to the committee. I would think that a monthly thing would be prudent. That's what we did in the past. I know that, I think that worked out pretty good, 1 day a month.
Council, in the past, we did once a month, and it was a meeting, like you said, during the day, but I'm also flexible, if we can, decide on what day will work of the week.
Okay. And then maybe it's something that people don't want to commit to. So maybe we start it with 1 member, and I haven't gone to the left here, but to see if, if it, typically we would put out the invitation for all to join once a date comes up, and it's like, hey, the Finance Committee's meeting on Tuesday X, and if you can join, that's great. And that's kind of what it worked in the past, kind of working around people's schedules. So any other commitment from the dais? Otherwise,
I would, with the planning, maybe in the liaison to the planning
No, I know,
commission,
you
that
got you.
takes up my time. so-
understood. Yep.
I would consider it.
Okay. All right. Councilman Day as well. So with no objection, we'll go ahead and formulate the committee with Councilman Lee, Councilman Day, and with the understanding that that they would be
I
meeting.
might be.
Okay. And Councilman Panthy as well. Great. Okay. With understanding they're probably meeting at least once a month, and their schedule would be coordinated with the 3 of them and staff. Okay. Great. Next on our agenda, we have 6706 Jefferson Street, the appeal decision from the ARB for Haymarket Hotel Ventures LLC. With that, I think what I'd like to do is start out with staff to give their presentation as far as this, the background. I think you might have already explained in the packet, but for the people listening as well. And then what we'll do is bring it up to the applicant, I believe, for a presentation. And then, with no objection, then we'll go through the dais of questions at first and then discussion afterwards. So if we kind of keep that all in perspective, think it sort of like a jury, that we're going to be hearing all this information before actually commenting either way, clarification at first, and then when we open up for the dais, then we're in our deliberation, sort of. Would that be fair enough? Okay, great. So with that,
Okay.
Yep.
So if council wants to follow along or anyone watching, we're on packet page 61. So I've organized the attachments and staff reports in the logical way that I thought they should appear. We received the letter from Blankenship and Keith for the appeal on July 25th of the Architectural Review Board decision that was made on July 24th. That's the first letter in your packet. Following that, on page 62 and 63, you have my staff report. Basically, what I've done here is I just wanted to give the background on the application as it was presented and what has happened to date. So here I've shared that in the winter of 2018, this property was previously requested for demolition. It was denied by the Architectural Review Board. It was appealed by the applicant at that time, and council upheld the decision of the ARB. Again, in June of 2019, the new applicant, Haymarket Hotel Venture LLC, applied for a new demolition permit and went through the ARB for decision and discussion. At the July 24th meeting, the ARB gave their denial based on the findings, which you will find later on in your packet. And the applicant appealed this decision. However, I do want to mention here that at the July 1st meeting, council requested that staff have a structural engineer come out and provide a report to the town council. So immediately following this staff report, you have that report that was done by Alexis Herr with ECS Mid-Atlantic. So on page 64 through, one moment. '64 through 86, you will have all of Alexis's findings, all of her remarks, and images that also accompany that. Just so the council knows, we did reach out to several different companies that we had previously worked with for recommendations for structural engineers that they've worked with in this area previously. We received several names, and this is a company that was recommended to us by Martin, our town attorney. So we reached out to them, and Alexis was able to come out and provide the report for us. And then following that, you will have all of my materials that were presented to the ARB, as well as the applicant's application and the previous engineer report that they provided to the board. And then lastly, you have the draft minutes for the ARB. These are draft, these are not final and approved, as the ARB has not seen them yet since our meeting was just the other week. So these will go to the ARB for final approval at their next meeting on August 21st.
And just for clarification with that too, so there might have been some concerns that the draft minutes, you, I believe, sent, like, was CC'd on an email to the chairman, and we haven't received any response that those do not reflect, or they accurately reflect the draft.
So just for the rest of the council, I was out at the end of last week. I was asked by the clerk to write the draft minutes on the demolition portion of the ARB meeting. There was some concern from someone on the board. I reached out to them today when I returned and was made aware of this concern. I've not received any remarks back yet, but when I do, I will provide them to council. I do believe it'll come up at the ARB meeting.
Okay, all right, great, thank you for that clarification there. So staff report. Okay, so now I think it's time to hear from the applicant that that is appealing this.
Good evening, Mayor Lee, members of the Town Council. Thank you for having us this evening. It's our pleasure to be here. Before we get into the appeal, I think it's important to understand where we're at. And you know, when we first started this endeavor, one of the things we first described as being a good neighbor. And that's not something we say, it's something we mean. For us to be successful, we have to have the town support. We have to have the resident support. We want everybody to be proud of the product that we provide. We received a lot of comments and questions after the last ARB meeting. Shortly after we did pull our zoning text amendment application, we received multiple inquiries as to why. And really the short answer is we wanted to be a good neighbor. We understood the visible resentment that people had to the idea of a 6-story hotel, and we wanted to respect the town. And so we immediately went back that night from the ARB meeting and went to our architect and said, you have 2 weeks to make a 4-story project that works, that the town would be proud of. I will say there are extreme constraints on the lot. It was very difficult. But I'm happy to say 1 a.m. on Saturday, the whole entire architectural firm worked on this and got us back a result. And if I could, I would love to share the results with you and let the town council take a look at where we're at and then continue the discussion.
Absolutely, yeah, because this will be the first time for, I think, all of us. You object for him showing us?
I do, because one of the things that Martin discussed with us at our ARB training is that when we're considering the demolition permit, we cannot consider what is going to be built after. And so I think that that is what we need to focus on tonight, is just the demolition. Martin, is that correct?
That's what I said, yes.
Mayor, then I would make the statement that per the ARB guidelines, the ARB guidelines, let me pull the exact section up for you. So Section 6, demolition guidelines, subsection A, applicants must provide a written statement explaining the reason for the demolition and describe alternatives to demolition and why such alternatives are not considered feasible. If this applicant is making a statement, as he did, back in the June as well as July meeting stating that this structure was going to be interfering with the structure in hand. My take on that would have to talk about the feasibility and why the alternatives are not considered feasible. So if he's showing us a sketch that shows how it's going to be laying in that parcel, that has to then strictly go with why such
Unfortunately-
alternatives
Please.
are not considered feasible.
Olan and
Right.
Martin both said that
Ms.
we can't
Cavazos,
consider.
if you could please just wait till we get recognized on each person. It's for just the respect of someone speaking. Councilman Leake, have you finished, or?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank
Councilman
you.
Cavazos.
Olan and Martin both said that we cannot consider the turning lanes, we cannot consider the building at all. We have to just consider the demolition permit in front of us. And if we are looking at the hotel and drawings and considering that, I think that that's going against what they just had the training for us on Wednesday.
I'm looking at the fact that I'm conducting the meeting and we're allowing the applicant to give his presentation for his appeal. So as a council member, I think we should be respectful to that, to allow him to finish his presentation, and not unless there's a strong objection or a motion to prohibit that. I think that he should at least be able to give his presentation, however it's that he's going to give, and then we can evaluate afterwards.
Can we ask Martin his opinion and what his thoughts are on that?
Procedurally, the mayor is exactly right. If there's a motion to prohibit the applicant from saying what he wants to say, then that would be the will of the council, and you could prevent him from doing that. Otherwise, the mayor as presiding officer runs the meeting.
Thank you.
Steve
So-
and other members were there at our architectural review board training. Do you have any thoughts on this, or Madhu?
Well, we're actually having the applicant give a presentation.
We're talking about the
If you
objection.
have a motion that you would like to present, then I'll acknowledge you for the motion. Otherwise, I think it's only due respect to let the applicant speak and give his presentation.
Okay.
Is that, what has Martin determined in?
With regard to the procedural issue here, or with regard to the content of the
Whether the
presenter?
applicant should go forward now, prior to,
That's the will of the council. What I was explaining during the training was that the issue before you now is whether the application for the COA, for the Certificate of Appropriateness, should be granted for the demolition. And that's a question about weighing, on the one hand, the historic preservation of that building against the other interest, the property interest of the property owner. The feasibility issue with regard to what it says in the guidelines of the ARB, I understand that to mean that it's a question of whether the building can be repaired, moved somewhere else, incorporated into another structure. That's what I understand that to be. That said, it's up to the council what evidence they want to hear. And if the council wants to hear evidence about a plan, which they've obviously spent a lot of money on and presumably are presenting to you in good faith, with no guarantee that it will ever be built, of course, but with still in knowing that they've spent a lot of money on time on it and they would like to build it, that's up to the council.
Right, and my thought on this is you let the presentation happen. If there's information here that you don't want to consider, then it's up to each individual not to consider it. In lieu of a motion to not allow the applicant to give his presentation, me as the chair will allow this presentation to continue. So if there's not a motion, Sure.
One further question for me. At what point in time then, because I have a very important question for the applicant on the ARB, on what was directed and what was not followed through. So at what point in time?
Sure,
Would that be after the
afterwards,
presentation?
correct, absolutely.
Okay.
That's where we're going to allow the presentation to happen.
Okay.
And then we'll go around for questions that we might have for clarification. I would still like to keep at that point, we're still gathering information. Think of the jury again. Allow the applicant to give his information. We assess it. we ask for clarification if it needs to be, and then we deliberate. So,
I'd like to make a motion to have the applicant wait until after we vote on the demolition to see the sketches, because I do think that this is conflicting with what we discussed at our training. I think that if the applicant has anything further to discuss about the demolition and the different areas that Martin described, whether the building can be rehabilitated, moved, or if they...
Mrs. Cavazza, that would be like a discussion. If you have a motion, so
That
that
is the motion, to wait and see the sketches until after we vote on the demolition.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
Never mind, go ahead. Did you have something?
I'm just reading that's what
right.
what is exactly saying there.
The motion is just to allow the applicant to give his presentation of the sketches, is my understanding. So without...
Until after.
Okay.
Till after the vote?
On the demolition.
And I'll only speak for myself because...
Well, wait a minute, we still...
Okay, yeah.
Right now, we have a motion on the floor without a second. Seeing no second.
Second.
Motion second, we have discussion.
Have discussion.
There we go. This is democracy. So we have a motion and second. Now we can have a discussion on the dais, not unless...
Just on the dais, but not to the applicant.
Correct. The whole idea of being able to go back and forth once the motion's on the table is for discussion. Now, there is an exception. If we have a unanimous consent on the dais here, that will allow the applicant or the question to happen. Otherwise, the discussion should be just on the motion. And then correct me if anything's going wrong. Okay.
I'll be glad to start.
Discussion. Sure.
I am anxious to hear the presentation. I truly am. But I too was at this training, and I'm kind of conflicted a little bit with exactly what Councilwoman Cavazos brought up. I just want to make sure that that's why I asked Martin, where we stand legally, because I don't want to, I was there, I volunteered to come to the training, and where it was stated pretty much what Councilwoman Cavazos pointed out, and I'm conflicted in that respect.
Gotcha. Now, maybe the clarification on that is that you had the ARB that's making, we're in a different decision-making process here. The decision was made, this is an appeal. So this is the elected body for the appeal process. So I think maybe that could have been more some misunderstanding of what is allowed or not allowed for this. And it's my opinion that we allow the applicant to have his right to give a presentation. So we'll go around so everybody gets a chance. Councilman Leake?
So again, to describe the alternatives of demolition and why such alternatives are not considered feasible. So as our legal counsel said, that has to do with rehabbing without the moving. Within what was stated at the July meeting, they cannot rehab the building due to this current building that he wants to show us is going to be put in there. So that would have to go directly with why it's not considered feasible. Moving it would have to be moved because the building is going to be going where that current building sits. So that is why it's considered not feasible. So per the ARB guidelines, and why such alternatives are not considered feasible has to do with how the structure outlays where it's sitting.
Okay. Councilman Madhu, do you have any questions or comments on our discussion? Councilwoman Cavazos.
I think I've already said everything I needed to.
Councilman Day, any questions regarding this?
I understand the conflict, but I definitely get the conflict. I understand it, and I ultimately, I think I'd like to hear the presentation. That's where I fall.
Okay, well, that would be it on the vote. So there again.
Last statement for me.
Okay.
I will be asking for, because it was brought up that there was a VDOT study done, and we talked about the turning lane. going to be in, I'm going to ask to see that study and get the point of contact.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there was a study or a meeting with VDOT.
It was one of the two, but
Right.
there was a meeting. But if there is a
Traffic
meeting with
engineers
VDOT,
would-
I want to know who the person is. I will personally sit with him and talk to them and make sure.
Yeah.
I have no reason to doubt the applicants are lying. I think they're.
No, I understand that.
But I
Our
wanna-
discussion really should be on the motion, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay, got it.
We're kind of getting dissecting here. So with no further discussion on the motion, there again, my final discussion would be just that I think there might be a little bit of confusion of what the ARB was direction and the process of a denial, and then the appeal process to the town council. So, any further questions?
I was just going to restate the motion for you, if you'd like me to.
Absolutely.
The motion is to delay presentation on the sketches of the proposed building until after the motion on the demolition vote.
Okay.
After the vote on the motion to demolish.
Right. Okay. So everybody make sure they understood the motion? Okay. We'll do a roll call vote, please.
Shannon?
No.
Leek?
No.
Panthy?
Let me understand correctly.
Sure. No, absolutely. This is important, so I would definitely want you to understand. Let the attorney make it clarify. So
The motion is to delay the presentation on the sketches of the proposed building until after the vote on the motion to demolish.
Oh, okay.
So just putting it in perspective, we're not going to let him do any presentation on the sketches until the very end, when after this is all said and done, when we make the motion either for or against the demolition.
No.
So no?
Cavazos?
Yes.
Day?
No.
All right. Sir, please continue with your presentation, and thank you for indulging.
So, as we were working with our architectural team, again, we tasked them of being a good neighbor and respecting the ordinances that are in place. And that means building a 4-story building, keeping the roof line under 50 feet, and then keeping into consideration the overlay, and keeping the project feeling period correct. We think they came out with a fantastic project. One of the challenges that sometimes you get with what we call an L-shaped building, which is what it takes in order to really facilitate that piece of land, is they often feel stretched and just straight buildings. And so we wanted our team to keep in mind the architectural feel, but make it feel broken up. And so as we feel, as you look at the project, one, hopefully your eyes drawn to the corner of Washington and Jefferson, but you see how long the building is now. And so it runs the entire length of Jefferson Street to get in all of the amenities, the restaurant, the bar, the meeting space, and the guest rooms. And we still lose a significant volume of our guest rooms by going down to 4 stories. That comes at a considerable cost. This building costs as much to build as our proposed 6-story building does, but we lose, again, a major portion of our inventory.
And just for orientation purposes, we're looking sort of like a southwest view of Washington to the right and Jefferson to the left. And is that the museum in the corner there?
Correct.
Okay, great. Just for clarification, thank you, sir.
And actually, the roof line of the building, just to put it in perspective, over here, even the parapets are below 50 feet. And we know the height of the steeple, and so you will still be able to see that over that side. But hopefully you can appreciate the entire length of the building and what it would take in order to put a project like this in play on that piece of land. Kind of looking at the building, again, we tasked them with breaking it up. Hopefully to your eye it looks like 5 different buildings and not one long L-shaped building. Period correct stonework, period correct brick work. We hope that it's something that, again, the town is appreciative of and feels proud to have out there representing the town. We think this is truly the centerpiece to Haymarket and the revitalization of downtown.
Okay. Was there, did Mr. Giff want to have any presentation as well, or?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the Town Council. I'm Gifford Hampshire with Blankenship and Keith, and I represent Haymarket Hotel LLC, Haymarket Hotel Venture LLC, and you've heard from Mr. Morgan, the representative of Haymarket Hotel. This, as you know, involves the appeal of the Architectural Review Board's July 24, 2019 decision denying a demolition permit for 6706 Jefferson Street. That meeting occurred after a continuation of a meeting in June, and I think it would be helpful in light of the prior discussion just to kind of put the legal parameters on the council's decision tonight. We are here under 58.1, 14.11 of the town code, which says that an applicant who is denied a demolition permit or a certificate is entitled to appeal to the town council. We are also under Title 15.2, 2306, as your town attorney will tell you. That is the enabling legislation for the town code, which says that any locality may, as part of its zoning ordinance, set up a historic district for historic landmarks, and that in subsection 2 can provide in its zoning ordinance, as the town does, that no historic landmark or structure may be raised, demolished, or moved until that has been approved by the Architectural Review Board. Now, significantly, as the council knows, but for the benefit of the audience and the people listening at home, the town has interpreted and has applied this enabling legislation to say that every single structure within the town that is 50 years old or more is a historic structure, such that it cannot be raised without a demolition permit from the Architectural Review Board. Now, the town had a perfect right to do that, but I think, as I will explain later in my presentation, that is the context in which the ARB is evaluating every single application that comes before it, and indeed the applications that have come before it in the past and have been approved for the demolition of structures that are older than 50 years. Significantly, Town Code 58.1-14.4 echoes the enabling legislation that says that all buildings within the old and historic town of Haymarket, which are 50 years old or older, are designated historic buildings, and it goes on to say, as consistent with the code, that no historic building may be demolished without a certificate. It's important also to recognize that with respect to the criteria that the Architectural Review Board must consider, those are set forth in Title 58.1-14.9, entitled Matters to be Considered by the Board in Acting on Appropriates of Erection, Restoration, and Demolition, etc. And subsection 6 of that provision, it says that it makes specific reference to the demolition of a building, and it says that in the case of a building to be raised, a primary consideration will be the extent to which its continued existence would tend to protect irreplaceable historic places and preserve the general historic atmosphere of the town. And it goes on in subsection 7 and 8 to talk about more general considerations. For example, in subsection 7, whether the structure will promote the general welfare of the town, and in subsection 8, the extent to which the building or structure will promote the general welfare by maintaining and increasing real estate value, generating business, creating new positions, attracting tourists, encouraging study, etc. So those are the general legal parameters under which the ARB was to consider this application. I submit to you that we have a situation in which an Architectural Review Board made a decision that is both in error of law and also without factual support in the record. And keep in mind that there is a right of appeal that the applicant has from the town council to circuit court. And the circuit court, as your town attorney will tell you, will defer to findings of fact if there is support in the record for them, and if not, it won't. But it will not defer to any erroneous conclusions of law. There's been a lot of discussion just now about the blinders, if you will, that were put on the ARB, in my opinion. And I have the utmost respect for the town attorney, but as you know, lawyers will sometimes disagree. And in my opinion, there is no basis, and I've not been able to find any basis in law or in the town's ordinance or in any case law or in any statute that says that the ARB cannot consider or should not consider the plans that the owner has for its property. And the town attorney just told you about the balancing of the equities, the balancing of the private property rights on the one hand and the interest the town has in the other in protecting its historic structures. I submit to you that appropriate balancing cannot be made unless the owner is taken with the property that he has and all the rights that he, she, or it has to do what he, she, or it can do with respect to the highest and best use of that property. And in this case, we've seen the plans as they've been revised, which, while they weren't before the ARB, there were other plans that should have been considered in the context of the applicant's statement that this structure cannot be integrated based upon the engineering reports that were in the record and the testimony before the ARB. This structure, as it exists in its dilapidated condition, cannot be integrated viably into the project. That should have been considered. And as Councilman Leek said, if you look at the ARB guidelines, the guidelines make specific reference to this and is reflective of why this should have been considered. Demolition guidelines, paragraph 7 of the Architectural Review Board design guidelines, has specific instructions for historic structures. And the very first of these is, as Councilman Leek said, applicants must provide a written statement explaining the reason for the demolition and describe the alternatives to demolition and why such alternatives are not considered feasible. How in the world, I ask you, can an applicant do that if he cannot talk about his plans and what he plans to do with the property? And that's exactly what happened in this case. The applicant explained that. It's in the record. I direct you to page 107 of the agenda package, which is the draft minutes. Again, we've heard no issue with those minutes. The draft minutes. I also refer you to the video where Mr. Morgan explained this, and he explained based upon the engineering reports, and let me just, for the record, let me just read it. Page 107 of the agenda package for the audience and those who are listening at home. The applicant, Haymarket Hotel Venture LLC, Ryan Morgan, presents updated findings. Mr. Morgan shares with the board that they discussed possibilities of work around the structure on the site. However, due to the amenities and the parking count provided, the engineer is unable to accommodate the structure. In addition, the applicant has worked with VDOT to determine that they would need a 15-foot easement to construct the turn lane project. Applicant re-examined the original engineer's report to determine the feasibility of moving the structure. The structural degradation of the building would require significant supporting inside the building to allow it to move. No assurances that the supports would protect the structure during the move. That does not take into account all other expenses to move and repair the building, to include permitting, road crews, moving power lines, etc. Mr. Morgan states he feels they have worked to address all requirements set forth in the guidelines, referring to the architectural guidelines, to include the feasibility of retaining the structure within the site plans, moving the structure, and repairing the structure. So the evidence is in the record, which precisely goes to the balancing of these equities as they should be balanced and also consistent with the guidelines. And if there's any issue with that, I direct you to page 112 of your package, which is the letter dated 7/31, that basically says the same thing. And so getting to the findings that are without support in the record, the very first of these findings, and I direct you to page 108 of the record, findings number 1 and number 7 state basically that the applicant didn't state the reason for the demolition or describe alternatives to demolition and why such alternatives and or rehabilitation of the buildings is not considered feasible. Well, based upon page 107 of your agenda package, the minutes, the video, yes, he did. He did exactly that. But the council, again, was erroneously, in my opinion, instructed not to consider any of that and didn't consider any of that. But beyond that, the finding is patently incorrect. That was there. And I submit to you that a circuit court would not uphold that finding because there's no basis in the record for it. In fact, the record contradicts it. I also say to you that finding number 6, that's on page 108, is, if you will recall, a while ago I talked to you about number 6 of the town code, which requires a description of how the applicant preservation will protect irreplaceable historic places and preserve the general historic atmosphere of the town. That's as the code, the town code says, that's the primary consideration. That's the primary consideration that the ARB has to make under the town code. Yet, if you look through the record, you will not find any support for that finding. It simply is conclusory or illogical. It says that the structure will protect irreplaceable historic places and preserve the general atmosphere of the town. And there's one, that's conclusory because there's no factual basis for it other than just that statement. And I submit to you there's nothing in the record that supports that. The last sentence says the structure's position on the lot contributes to the town's historic streetscape along the town's southern gateway. Well, what does that mean? To take that literally would mean that any structure that's 50 years old at that location, regardless of what it is must be preserved because it will contribute, its location contributes to the historic landscape. This finding says nothing about the historic significance of the structure itself and why it's important in that location. So it's both illogical and without support in the record. The other finding number 3, on page 108 of the agenda package, I'm sorry, it's not number 3, it's number 5. It says in the last sentence, the building is an important, if not only, example of Queen Anne architecture that reflects the evolution of building styles in the town. I submit to you there's no support in the record for that either. I am not an expert in Queen Anne architecture, but I do understand that it contains certain architectural features, none of which were found by the ARB, including dormers. I don't see any dormers in that structure. Bay windows, I don't see any bay windows. Corner towers, I don't see a single tower on that building. Or an asymmetrical facade. I don't see an asymmetrical facade. But the main point is, regardless of what I think, there's no support in the record for the finding that it is an example of Queen Anne architecture. And I submit to you that the other findings set forth on page 108 of your agenda package are either not relevant or circular. Number 2, for example, says the application is inconsistent with the stated purpose of the old and historic Haymarket Overlay District. The subject structure is designed as a historic building with the old and historic town of Haymarket. The purpose of the old and historic Haymarket Overlay District is to protect against the destruction of such historic resources. Well, what does that say? That just says it's a building that's 50 years old and has been designated as a historic structure. Again, that would mean that there would be no purpose to the ARB. There would be no need for the ARB to review any demolition permits. If it's listed as a historic structure, if it's in the historic district, then it gets preserved. So I don't think that's a meaningful finding. Finding number 3, the application is inconsistent with the intent of the Town Center B1. The zoning ordinance states, recognizing the economic impact of the existing historical area, it shall be further the intent of the B1 district to encourage the retention and rehabilitation of structures and uses in the district that have historic and or architectural significance. Well, fine, that's the intent of the B1 district, but again, that would apply to every single structure in the B1 zone. And again, there would be no need for an ARB or the consideration of any demolition permit, because if you're in the B1 zone, you should be preserved. And likewise, finding number 4 talks about the comprehensive plan and the fact that this property is listed on table 16 of the plan, which means it's a 50-year-old structure and it's considered historic. Well, I'd say, so what? I mean, that does not speak to why, in balancing the equities your town attorney just told you about, this structure should not be raised. So based on all of these things, I submit to you that the ARB's findings should be reversed, that when you balance the equities based upon the record that's before you, that the balance of the equities is that this is a structure that is dilapidated, that you have 2 structural engineers who told you it is. You've seen it today on your view. You've heard testimony, or you see testimony before the ARB that it cannot be integrated into the project. And again, the ARB should have considered, in balancing those equities, the owner's property rights, and including what he can do under the highest and best use of his property. And for all these reasons, we ask that you reverse the ARB's decision. And I stand ready to answer any questions.
Okay. So nothing else from your presentation? So here's where we could, for clarification, I think I know one VDOT thing as far as the traffic engineer thing that you would like, but here's a chance to ask the clarification questions on what was actually presented. After we get all our questions as far as clarification, then we will go for our deliberation. So with that, I'll start to the right.
With questions and a comment, comment can be fair?
Yeah, as long as you're.
I'll take a chance. I certainly do not agree with some of your assessment of our ARB in this town. I'm offended by some of your comments. I'll just tell you. Our ARB does serve a very valuable mission in this town. So I certainly do not agree with some of your comments. I feel you lessened their importance. I don't appreciate it. Now, I do have questions, a couple of questions. I want to know who is the VDOT point of contact that y'all spoke with?
Mr. Shannon, I did not say what you just think I said.
I just ask you the question. Who is your VDOT point of contact?
We have a local traffic consultant.
I need a name.
The name of
If
the
you would,
consultant.
get the name, the VDOT point of contact to Emily tomorrow, unless you have it.
If I may, I was actually in that traffic scoping meeting.
Mhm.
I was there with Peter Gerner, as well as,
Peter just got promoted where he's at, okay.
yes, so we had a meeting with him in his new capacity. We were also there with Hiran Yoshi,
Yep,
and we were also there with Motion.
okay.
And I
Did they
can
give
provide you that
Did they give a
email.
written response?
They have not provided the written response yet. This was a
Is-
meeting on June 13th.
Is
and
any
they're-
information that you attended this meeting? Is
Is
any
that
of this
correct?
information that the applicant has submitted differ from what you were at this meeting?
No, sir. So during that meeting, just to quickly clarify, what we discussed is the scope of the project, the amount of traffic that would be generated on the site, and how that would impact any entrances and exits, and then how the traffic in general would flow around the site, on and off, and then coming in from other interstates, 66, Route 15, areas of entry like that.
See, this information to me is important to see in writing. It's all
Understood.
verbal.
Yeah,
I have the same, another question. We just briefly, the ARB, I went back and looked at the one meeting, and then I was at the last ARB meeting, and the question came up that you were asked to provide packets in writing, and nothing was given in writing. In fact, I think the comment was made that your verbal presentation that night took the place of the written information that was asked for. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to know why the written documentation was not provided, and why you felt the verbal took place of what was requested by the ARB
Sure,
in
Council.
writing. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. We were under the understanding, and maybe it was a misunderstanding, that at the next continuation of the ARB meeting, we were to present as to why we could not meet those guidelines. And that's what we had come prepared to do. We maybe misunderstood the communication of submitting something, but we had come prepared to answer those questions and address those concerns.
okay.
Further questions, Mr. Shannon? If not, I'm going to go to the next.
No, sir, no other questions.
Councilman Leake.
No questions, sir.
Councilman Pounthy, any questions regarding it? Councilwoman Cavazos, any questions? Councilman Day.
Do you have anything showing the layout of the, the property layout?
The site
I mean, I
plan?
see it yeah, exactly. That's the thing.
We do. We have a fluid site plan. I may have mentioned that they had just finished the site plan and the overlay on Saturday. As of this afternoon, they had just submitted to our engineering team Bowler their site plan, and so they are working to true up the site plan to submit forward. So we should have that here any moment now.
And I do want to say that I agree with some of what Steve Shannon was saying about some of the attorneys' comments. I
So
thought some
just
of them
make sure
were-
this is a question. I'm sorry, Mr.
I
Day.
apologize.
Okay.
I have only a comment.
Okay.
No questions. No
All
further
right.
questions.
Could your comment
I
wait
will
for deliberation?
I will wait with a comment, yes.
Okay, all right. So I just
Thank
want
you.
to kind of keep
Thank
everything
you.
in perspective here. Right. So with that, is there any further questions to the applicant or to staff? Any further information that you all would like to provide?
I'd just like to say, I did not mean any disrespect to the ARB. What I was trying to say was the findings with respect are not well-founded, and that some of them are conclusory or meaningless. That's no reflection upon the integrity of the ARB. My job as the attorney to be an advocate for my client, and the findings are very important, as the ARB said that day. The ARB made specific direction that those findings be transmitted to the City Council, and I need to attack those findings to represent my client zealously, and that's what I do.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I know we went, I'm sorry, not unless there's I get a unanimous consent to, I understand that. I guess we'll ask if there's a unanimous consent to allow a speaker to ask a question that's in the audience. So it looks like there's.
I'm fine with it.
Okay, Councilman Leake?
Ms. Dottie, I love you to death, but unfortunately with our procedural rules, it's out of line to have a guest in the audience ask a question to an applicant. This is for the dais to have dialogue with the applicant.
Understood.
All due respect, Ms. Dottie.
Right. We lost it on the unanimous consent, and not unless there's something legally. Okay, great. There again, appreciate your wanting to be able to ask that question. With that, I'm going to open it.
Short recess, if you don't
We
mind.
could, absolutely. Nina, we'll say 5 minutes or so. All right, we'll reconvene in 5 minutes. Thank you. For having this short delay here. So we have discussion. This is where we're able to do our deliberation, hear all this information. Everyone, I assume, received the packet, had the same opportunity to review all the information out of the packet, obviously heard from the applicant. We've seen the draft minutes. We've seen, some of us have personally seen some of the presentations at the ARB and different meetings and like that. And I think I'd go around the dais just to see if there's somebody that would like to start with a presentation, or I know that I believe at least one council member has some prepared information as well.
This is our discussion now.
This is where you let it go, man. This is
Whatever.
your open mic.
I'm not short on words. I have no problem starting. First of all, I'm very disappointed that, but at no fault to the applicants, that this hotel is not going in the fairgrounds. Really disappointed. And that was my initial feeling. After talking to citizens that's been here 35, 40 years, or even longer, I haven't really found anyone that was in support of a 6-story hotel. But they've all been in support of a hotel in this area. The one citizen who spoke tonight about, really this is the advantage of being in the center of our town is it's everything, you can walk anywhere. If it were down at the fairgrounds, everything's, you got to walk this way with everything and everything. So is it more walkable for our walking town being here? I feel the answer is yes. Under no circumstances would I have supported a 6 or the ZT. I would not have supported that. It is going to be, I am going to want to see the, obviously the parking. I mean, that's an issue over there. I don't know how many, I should have asked this question earlier. In fact, I had it and forgot to, but how many less rooms now with a reduction? I like what the applicant has done with the L-shaped building. I really do. I mean, the front, it's not going to look exactly like that, although our roads will be paved this year. We will have the white lines and everything, so.
Like those?
It
Close?
probably won't be those. It'll
Okay.
be the regular, initially anyway, the initial, what VDOT does for crosswalks. But, you know, the questions I'm going to have, and maybe this is the, and again, should have asked this question, I guess, but relocation of utilities is expensive, very expensive. I can only assume up here that that's the builders, that they eat that cost. Nothing like that would come to the town.
Yeah, my understanding, we require those in our guidelines that any new development that they go underground.
Okay, which
yeah,
I'm sure
right.
they would.
Yes.
It's a reputable business, and I believe they will certainly make good faith effort into being part of the community. I had, well, I'll just close by saying again, is opposed.
I'll have probably a second round, so if there's
Okay.
something, because I think it's only fair. This is a big deal. This
Yeah,
is not
it
just
is,
a
because
COA
not only
denial
a big
for.
deal about the hotel going in there, but about what we're voting on tonight.
No, absolutely,
That's
absolutely. So
big.
I will respectfully,
Let me
if there's
say
something else.
one last comment, and I'll shut up. I won't even need a second round. Again, I appreciate what Ms. Leonard has brought to the table with some of the things that, and not only her, a couple of the other 40-year citizens I've talked to about protecting, not per se the building itself, but what goes in there. If that building is demoed, it's got to fit our historic overlay and all. It has to. And that's why I have the respect and the confidence in our ARB that they will make that happen if this is in fact reversed and this hotel goes in as we see it there. So
Okay.
I'll shut up.
Is there anybody who would like to speak second? Otherwise, I'll continue to go around the dais.
You're
Councilman-
okay with just going the
Okay, sure.
way of the flow. I
Councilman Lee.
put my thoughts down on a PowerPoint presentation, so if council will oblige me, I have about a 20 slide thing that I'll just summarize and go through real quick as my talking points, if that's okay.
Councilman Leake, you have the floor to give your information as well. This is all about being able to equally
So I went ahead and put together some things. I sat in on an ARB training that I think was also very helpful for myself. After watching a training that was conducted there the 5th of December of 2018, we conducted another training here last month, the 24th of July, in regards to some of the ARB, their oversight, how they came about, what they can look at, different things along those lines.
Councilman Lee, could you maybe just get the mic a little closer? There you go.
Sorry.
It might help. Thank you.
So one of the things that our attorney brought up was fundamental rights. So as everyone sitting in the audience that owns property, not just within the town of Haymarket, but also within the state of Virginia, you have a fundamental right, and that's protected there by the Virginia Constitution. And property is a fundamental right. So what is that right to property? Includes multiple things. So you have the right to possess, you have the right to use, the right to enjoy your property, the right to destroy your property, exclude others from your property, sell your property, X, Y, and Z. When we're looking at decisions based off this, and I think this is where the attorney for the applicant was trying to get to, I don't believe that it came across as rude, but I believe that it was, as our town attorney stated in our training, that it's the ARB's job to provide a record for that to be submitted up to the town council, and then that record is also used in case they go ahead and appeal it from the town council to the circuit court. And so what that record is based off of, I went ahead and I divided this up into a couple ways. I looked at what our town code says, I looked at what our ARB guidelines state, then I also looked at what the record that was submitted to us was from the ARB, and then lastly, the two engineers' reports that we had. So in Town Code 58-14.9, I'm visual. I know I ramble a lot, so I try to put this visually so everyone can follow along with me here. But subsection 6, in the case of a building to be raised, the primary consideration will be to the extent of which its continued existence would tend to protect irreplaceable historic places and preserve the general historic atmosphere of the town. So part one of that, I say, is what is the irreplaceable historic place? Did someone famous stay here, live here? Was someone of importance stay here, live here? Which was it? And then secondly, did a historic event happen here? Was something signed at this location? Was there something of a significant factor at this particular location? Then part two I looked at, I said, how will this preserve the general historic atmosphere of the town? So I watched all 5 meetings that took place with this application, or excuse me, with this structure. It was over 2 applications. One was in December with a work session. One was then in January, and then February, I believe, and then the second was then here recently in June and July of also this year that dealt with this particular structure. Again, 2 separate applications, but the same thing with this physical structure, and I tried to gather all the information that I could. So 2 things that I got in regards to how will it preserve the general historic atmosphere. So the 2 things that I heard that were stated was Queen Anne architecture and gingerbreading on the porch. I don't know if anybody knows what Queen Anne architecture is. I had no idea what it is. I put it into my phone and I thought Siri messed up because it looked nothing compared to what that building looked across the street. So then I said, all right, I got to be off. So I typed in American Queen Anne architecture. And I would recommend anybody in the audience or up at the dais, while we have our computers, type in Google Queen Anne architecture and see what comes up. So these are some of the fundamental traits of what Queen Anne architecture includes. And then this next slide actually shows you what Queen Anne architecture is. So everyone at the dais went over there, as well as some folks in the audience went over and looked at this building, which is stated to say it's Queen Anne architecture. Don't know about you, but to my personal opinion, the only thing that I would see that would be the same would possibly be the dental molding. Outside of that, I don't see how the 2 structures are the same in regards to any of these points that resemble Queen Anne architectural. This was stated in a statement, the building is an important, if not the only example of Queen Anne architectural that reflects the evolution of the building styles in the town. Next one is town code. As our attorney stated in our work session, again this past July 24th, he states the extent to which the building or structure will promote the general welfare of the town and all citizens by the preservation and protection of historic places and areas. The extent of which the building or structure will promote the general welfare by, and then you have A through H there. I think the big ones are A and B, and those were also brought up by our legal counsel in our work session, maintaining and increasing real estate value and generating business. So I looked at both of those in my next point here. I said, is it not maintaining or it's not maintaining or increasing real estate value, it's in fact decreasing real estate value. This is proven. One, on my occupation, I serve as a commercial real estate agent. And so I looked at what was going on around this property, what's been going on around this property. So you have a vacant pad site to the west. You have a vacant commercial tenant space to the north, which is currently our building, as well as the Remax building. You have a commercial portfolio for sale to the northwest and another commercial portfolio sale to the northeast. These would be the Exit Realty building, as well as Red House Ordinaire and the building just adjacent to that. We also have vacant commercial space to the east. We have a blighted commercial property to the east. And according to the homeowner who's recently called in to the town hall stating that they're looking to sell their property, we have 2 residential dwellings to the south that are going to be going on the market for sale. So obviously everybody in town is moving out away from this property for some reason, and mainly because it's only decreasing real estate value. Now hopefully, with these buildings being demolished, all but one, it's going to start increasing and we're going to start seeing things. But as we heard about in our tourism presentation today, the best thing to be able to revitalize a downtown area is bringing an anchor. And what comes along with anchors is comes secondary and tertiary uses, those being restaurants, retails, things along those lines. So in my professional opinion of what I do on a daily basis, I would say that this would start to easily turn and go in a positive direction here recently. Number 2, which B, again, was, does it generate business? It's not currently generating any business over there. And I said, okay, well, let's be positive about this. Let's think about this. How could we generate business at this site? How could we look at it? Because another thing that our legal counsel said was, hey, always look at it as the devil's advocate. Look at it from the other side of things. How can we generate business here? All right, well, to generate business, I spoke with 2 developers, one that is physically in town, and one that has pretty much developed half of Heathcote. And I said, hey, what would it cost per foot to go ahead and rehab this building? And they said, easily somewhere between $250 and $300. I said, well, that's a little bit above what the national average is for building. And they said, yes, but at the same time, you have to realize you're not building. You're taking down and putting up at the same time. So it's a lot more costly. So simple math here. We take a 1,680 square foot home. We times it by $250 a foot. It comes out to $420,000. That does not include your civil engineering costs for your site plan, your architectural costs, any permitting, just your supplies and labor. So your $420 in for your rehab, plus what is that physical land cost? Well, if you look at recent land comps for a B1 district, it's going about $150,000 for a quarter acre. That site, which is subdivided off at a 0.23 acres, would pull in probably about $150 for the land. So you're all in at $570. At that point, I'm looking at it and saying, okay, I'm all in for $570. By the way, Prince William County tax assessor says the building itself is only worth $900, which is crazy. But parking, now I got to take this quarter of an acre site and I got to park it. Well, what if we did a front porch with it? What if we put a restaurant in there? Well, I'm not ever going to meet the parking regulations because for our parking ordinance, which is we need to look at, as I've stated before, but it's so constraining. You would have to have 16.8 spots just for a restaurant. A retail store is 1 per 250, so we're looking at almost 7 spots. And then maybe a cute little bed and breakfast. But that, again, is your residential, which is 2 per home, plus bed and breakfast is 1 per each room. So in total, we have 6 there. This is not even taking into consideration any type of setbacks, landscape buffers, waivers that we would have to get along those lines to make this site work. So even if we had somebody crazy enough in town to go ahead and do that, I'll show you in a table later down what that actually relates to and how long the payback period would be to be able to get that to happen. So looking at our zoning ordinance, again, I don't see how, according to our two town codes here, our 58-14.9 subsection 6 and subsection 7 and 8, how it fits in. Because they're saying that it's Queen Anne architectural, but it's clearly not. And there's no documentation to state what significant value that there was there. So I go to the ARB guidelines, was my second way of how I wanted to look at this application. So as we stated, applicants must provide a written statement explaining the reason for demolition and describe alternatives to demolition and why such alternatives are not considered feasible. I think this is where the two attorneys would go back and forth. The way that I would interpret this is that, hey, you have to, if they're stating that it's not feasible because they have to either move it or demolish it, well, that's why we have to consider what's going to be going in its place. Now, I think Martin's take on it is more considered to, you can't put a condition that says you can only do a COA if you get a building permit. The things along those lines. And I could be incorrect, but that's for legal to talk about amongst themselves. So looking at this, why such alternatives are not considered feasible. So to Mr. Shannon, who stated, Mr. Morgan, why didn't you put it in writing? And Mr. Morgan told us why he didn't put it in writing. I would also like to remind council there was 2 other applications that have come, one as an appeal in front of us, one as just a regular application to the ARB where folks did not put it in writing. But the last application that was most recent seen by this board was Ms. Leonard's property, which was not in writing until it came to the town council. And at that time, it was in writing in front of the town council, which then we were able to make the determination based off that. So to say that it wasn't in writing, understandable. Okay, they didn't put it in writing the first 2. We do now have it in our packet that it's in writing, and we're able to go from there. So from what was provided from us, from the applicant to us is we reviewed multiple scenarios after the previous ARB meeting for alternatives on how to incorporate the building into our development. We went back to our architect and asked them to find ways to work around the structure and incorporate it. Their response was that there was no way to fit the building with its lobby, meeting space, food and beverage, as well as parking on the site without using the space occupied by the Gossam House. Limitations on the site along the location of the size of the structure did not provide for feasible solutions of incorporating either. So they clearly state why. They need every square foot of the parcel for development, landscape buffers, setbacks, parking. Mr. Shannon brought up a good point. Hey, how do I know that that's not true? Well, my take to that is, well, any type of development over there is going to cause a turn lane on Jefferson Street. Just like, and as the town council most likely knows, when we do our development on our side, we're having to put a turn lane on Jefferson as well. It's going to have to go in on both sides. Now, as Mr. Shannon stated in previous meetings, VDOT's not going to want to come in and buy that land and put it in there. They want you to put it in at your cost. So what do? They wait for someone to come in and develop. They wait for a site plan like ours to come in. Well, when we do our road improvements, we're putting in a turn lane. Is that correct, Ms. Lockhart? That's correct. When a development goes over there, it's going to be required the same thing. A turn lane is going to go in because VDOT doesn't want to buy the property. They want the person to develop it and pay for it themselves, which makes sense. At that time, it saves us money. We're the taxpayer. So put the burden on the developer in that instance. They state that it cannot be incorporated into the plan due to the layout of the building. And then you have a VDOT turn lane. So as Mr. Shannon confirmed with me, the turn lane's about 12 feet. Curb, gutter, sidewalk, landscape buffer on both sides, sidewalk, utilities, all that. You add another 14 feet. So all in, we're about 26 feet. I went over there the other day and I shot from the road, the pavement, the end of the pavement with a laser to the front door, and it came in at 20 feet to the front door. So this meaning that it's going to go an additional 6 feet inside the structure as is. Alternatives to demolition, why such alternatives are not considered feasible. Respectful to people's times. I'm going to put that there. They said that they cannot incorporate it, list it for sale, and relocate it. Those are the 3 things that I'm going to be looking at in my next one. So place it for sale for someone to restore. So this property, whether some folks may or may not know, as well as was stated this evening by a letter that was read, has been on and off the market looking to be redeveloped all the way back to pretty much 2003. It's been on and off the MLS. It's been on and off CoStar and LoopNet. This property has been on the market with its current broker for 22 months. Other listings date back to 2010 that I could find, and other plans that have been brought before the town with different developers going back all the way to 2003. Recently, it's been on the market for 7 months with the current condition of demo permits approved, except for the structure at 6706 Jefferson Street. So to summarize that, it's been on and off the market trying to be developed for over 16 years. If someone was wanting to buy those buildings and rehab them, I'm pretty sure they would have bought them over the 16 years and would have actually done it. If someone wanted the structure, they would have come forward within the last 16. So the other side to it is moving it. I don't know if anybody actually knows what the moving cost is. I had a client that moved a property from the town over to his building at QBE, which was a square block. Cost him $34,000 to move it from there to the other, and that's just the moving cost. That wasn't the foundation or rehab costs or anything along those lines. But one city block, $34,000. So, all right, relocate it. Let's relocate it into town. Well, where are we going to relocate it? We only have a couple of sites in town that have not been developed yet, or they're just vacant land. So you have 1510 Washington Street, also known as Crossroads Village. Melodon doesn't want it. Why? Because he's in the middle of a site plan, and he's going through those avenues right now. 15111 Washington Street, Winterham Pad Site number 2. They're in LOI stages, according to their real estate broker, and they're not looking to take the property. So then you have 6604 and 6608 Jefferson Street, which is under a site plan that has been in front of the Planning Commission, so that's not, can't go there. You have 14850 Jordan Lane, which is currently active on the market, which is part Prince William County, part town. But according to their broker, they're looking to actually remove all the houses that are on the county side to be able to come in with some sort of R2, R4 residential type plan. So that's on the market. They're not looking for it. 67 Hunting Path, I was not able to get in touch with that owner, but his property is active on the market, so I'm assuming he's not looking to take the property. You have 14850 Washington Street. Again, that's under contract, going through site plan. And then 14600 Washington Street, that owner stated no, he didn't want it. All right, so if no one wants it in town and you're considering putting it on sale to move it outside of town, how does that then correspond with our town code 58-14.96? A primary consideration will be to the extent to which its continued existence would tend to protect the irreplaceable historic place and preserve the general historic atmosphere of the town. If you move it outside of the town, you're not preserving the town at that point. But there's nowhere in town to move it because nobody wants it. So there you're at a crossroads. So then the last one was I took all the points, I believe there were 7 points that the ARB brought to the town council, and they walked through and they put all their points written out, and I walked through each one of these. So this was the first point. On January 16, 2019, the ARB denied the same application. No new information or further written justification has been submitted by the applicant warrant to reveal of the previous ARB decision. Why they were requesting demolition? If anybody tunes into the June 19, 2018 meeting from 17 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes, Mr. Murray explains why they were requesting demolition and had dialogue with the board. Now granted, I will give you, it was not written, but they did go through and they spent almost an hour saying why they were requesting demolition. Then what alternatives were and why they were not feasible. July 24, 2019, from 2 minutes and 40 seconds, so 24 minutes, 24 seconds, Mr. Morgan explained what alternatives there were and what they explained and why they were not feasible. So to say no new information or justification was submitted or stated by the applicant, in my opinion, would be false based off the record that we can go online and watch between these minutes of Mr. Murray talking to the ARB and Mr. Morgan talking to the ARB. Number 2 was the applicant is inconsistent with the stated purpose of the Old Historic Haymarket District overlay. The subject structure is designated as historic building within the Old Historic Town of Haymarket, and purpose of the Old and Historic Haymarket District overlay is to protect against the destruction of such historic resources. So what is the purpose? Here's the full excerpt of what the purpose is. This article is enacted pursuant to Code Virginia blah blah blah, as amended for the purpose of imposing special requirements in addition to the requirements pertaining to the underlying zoning in the town, in order to protect and preserve those areas or structures which are historic, architectural, or cultural interests. Again, historic, architectural, cultural interests. And then creation. What are the boundaries? As some folks have stated before, and Ms. Leonard corrects, the creation and boundaries. In order to preserve the unique and cultural heritage of the town, there is hereby established an overlay district to be known as the Old and Historic Town of Haymarket, which shall include all the areas that lie within the corporation limits of the town. But as Ms. Leonard always corrects us and tells us, the entire town is an overlay. The entire town is an overlay district. So for a certificate of appropriateness required to erect, reconstruct, or alter, restore, or raise a building. So what makes a building be considered historic? In order to promote the general welfare through the preservation and protection of historic places and areas of historic interest, all buildings within the Old and Historic Town of Haymarket, which is the entire town, which are 50 years old or older, are designated historic buildings. So that simply states that in age, it makes you a historic building. So then I come back to it, and I say, all right, in order to protect and perpetuate those areas of structures which are historic, architectural, cultural interest. Well, what's historic about it? Again, there was no documentation from the ARB stating what was historic about it, except that it was clean and architectural, which it's not compared to the research that I've done and any of the research that you've done sitting in your seats or at the dais. And two, what architectural features make it historic? I see the dental molding. I give you that. I think the dental molding makes it historic. That can be incorporated into a new plan. What cultural interest are we trying to protect with this structure? Again, none presented there by the ARB. To kind of contradict some folks who would say, well, we can't do it because it was designated as historic building within the old and historic town of Haymarket. Here's a list of 6 structures that were granted COAs for demolition within the last 18 months that were also designated as a historic building within the old and historic town of Haymarket. So to say that it only pertains to this one, I don't think that would be fair. You would think that you would look at that based off all of them. But here's 6 buildings that received COAs that were within the old and historic town of Haymarket. So, number 3, the application is inconsistent with the intent of the Town Center B1. The zoning ordinance states, recognizing the economic value of the existence of historic area, it shall further be the intent of the B1 district to encourage the retention and rehabilitation of structures and uses in the district that have historic and or architectural significance. So the definition says it encourages. We didn't put in the word shall. We didn't say we have to. We put in the word encourage because we understood that we're not going to be able to reuse every single structure in the town. Again, I come back to what makes this historical significance and what is the architectural significance outside of the dental molding. Also, here's 5 buildings that were received a COA that were also in the Town Center B1 district. So to state that it's inconsistent with the intent of the Town Center B1 district would be false because here are 5 other ones that were granted COAs that were also within the B1 district. All right. Number 4, almost done. Sorry, guys. The application is inconsistent with the Town of Haymarket Comprehensive Plan per Table 16. I won't make you read the rest of all the stuff. Except for that 3rd line in there. The plan states historic structures are important because they contribute to Haymarket's sense of place and provide tactical lessons of cultural influence of the community. The plan also cites historic resources as fragile and non-renewable. If they're stored, the loss is permanent. Okay, I understand that. What makes the structure historic? Again, we didn't have any type of documentation, anything that states that this is why the house is historic. I looked at the first presentation done by the Walsh Colucci. There was nothing in there that showed why it was historic outside of the age and the definition alone. And then I also watched the remainder of the meetings, and there was nothing that was really stated in there that was why the house is a historic structure outside of the age. So on another one saying that it's inconsistent, that's unfair because here's 2 properties that were also received COAs, which were in Table 16 of the Town of Haymarket Comprehensive Plan as a historic structure. But what's weird is that there was actually buildings that were over 50 years old that were not put in that plan, like the Colonel's house, that old stone house. What else was there? There was another one. Big Fred's Garage, that was over 50 years old when they put it. And so it was interesting because for some reason, not all the properties actually were put in there. They selected which ones they wanted to put in. So number 5, per the revision of the Historic Landmarks Brief Survey Form, blah, 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 blah. This just talks about Queen Anne architecture. Come down to the 4th line with me, 2 words over. The building is an important, if not the only example of Queen Anne architectural that reflects the evolution of building styles in town. Moreover, families and individuals that have owned the property, Butler, Garnett, Goss, and Costello, have contributed to the town's culture and economic history. Finally, now we got something. Now they're saying we have some families that are represented with this property. But again, we know it's not Queen Anne architectural. So then I said, how do they contribute to the town's culture and economic history? So these are excerpts, exactly word for word, that I pulled. And always want to make sure we reference to make sure that we have written proof or verbal proof. So in an ARB meeting on the 16th of January 2019, minute 1 hour and 3 minutes, ARB chairman says, all I can say is, well, it's on our registry. We do not have any names associated with it besides being on the registry. Then Mr. Schneider at the ARB meeting on the 16th of June says, the Garrett family purchased the property for $150 for land and $150 for the building. Right, so we have a family that purchased it. They were the first ones to purchase it. The Butlers, Mr. Butler was a wheelwright, may have ran his business out of there. We have no proof that he did, but he may have ran his business out of there. And then it stated that Gossam and Costello traded the property back and forth through the 50s, the 80s, and even past that as a trading resource. So this is what they're saying that, according to number 5, is historic about it. So we have the chairman who says that it's on a registry. We don't have names associated with it. But we do have one family that bought it. We have Mr. Butler, who was a real right, who lived there at one point, and Gossam and Costello, who traded it back and forth. Gossam and Costello also owned half, or Gossam, Mr. Allen, owned probably half the town at one point. We also tore down his store up here, which was probably more historic than that home over there. So to state that that house being referenced, the Gossam house, was more history, I believe that the store that we tore down here on the town green would actually be more historic than that home overall. All right, almost done. Further matters that would be considered by the ARB outlined in the zoning ordinance and in context of the property's location, proximity to the town's historic crossroads, and contain existence to the subject structure will prevent irreplaceable historic places and preserve the general historic atmosphere of the town. The structure's position on the lot contributes to the town's historic streetscape along the town's southern gateway. So what about this structure will protect the irreplaceable historic place? So we know the Garretts live there, the Butlers live there, and the Gossams traded it. But we don't have anything of significant value there that states it. So what I'm getting to is my childhood home where a council member grew up and a mayor lived. So in 25 years, is that going to be a historic place? And the ARB is not going to tear that down because a mayor lived there and a council member grew up there? I mean, it's not an irreplaceable historic place. How will saving the structure preserve the general historic atmosphere of the town? Again, it's not Queen Anne architectural as is constantly stated in here. So what in there outside of dental molding is the architectural style that we're trying to preserve so badly? And then lastly, last one here, for the ARB review board design guidelines, the application materials whether states the reason for demolition nor describes the alternatives to demolition and why such alternatives and or rehabilitation of the building is not considered feasible. The 7/20/2018 engineer report submitted with the application describes conditions and required remediations similar to those historic structures to the town that have been adaptively reused and are reasonably expected to have a market value that exceeds rehabilitation costs. For matters to be considered by the ARB, these rehabilitated structures promote the general welfare consistent with the listed criteria within the zoning ordinance. All right, so part 1. Go back to see slide 11. We're so far along, we don't need to go back to that. Part 2, the structure of the town. The two structures that the town rehabilitated, I would say, would be irreplaceable historic places. Why are they irreplaceable historic value? One, it's the first post office, which is now Washington Street Realty. And then you also have the Wholefish House, which the first mayor lived in here on Jefferson Street. So those would be two of historic values. Part 3, reasonably expected to have market value that exceeds rehab costs. I did the math, it doesn't work. No one in town wants it from the research that I've done and talked to, and nobody wants to move it. It's not feasible to incorporate it within their plan. And then which part of the general welfare under code 58-14.9 does it actually promote? Not stated. Lastly, I told you here's a table of what it would actually cost. So I took 1,680 square feet. I took it at a price per foot at $25, which would be probably pretty high for that structure, but I said, hey, let's go ahead and try it. At a 3% escalation each year, it would take them 14 and a half years to break even on that property. That number comes from the $420 for the rehab costs, as well as the $150 for going in and buying the land. So after 15 years, they would finally break even. Granted, no one's going to end up paying $36.71 a foot for that. So that lease is going to get renegotiated probably 5 times in 3-year leases, and it's going to take even longer than that to be able to break even and become cash flow positive. This doesn't take into consideration any civil fees, any architectural fees, any brokerage commissions, anything along those lines. It's simply just a flat ROI there. It's just the percentage is so low that I don't see how the rehab cost on this meets the market value. From all the research that I did, as well as my professional opinion of being in commercial real estate, the value is not there. So I appreciate everyone taking the time for me to go through that. I felt that it was necessary to touch on all those points. And again, thank you for obliging me with this presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Leake, for obviously something that took a lot of time to research and go through. As we continue, Councilman Panthy, I think you're up if there's any additional comments or...
No, everything Councilman Seven, Councilman Lake.
Okay,
yeah,
you might have thoughts
history.
later. Okay. Councilman Cavazos.
I have a question. Who solicited Ms. Mayor to come tonight and discuss tourism and also the hotel tax revenue?
Sure. I think the presentation was on the books, and you could ask the clerk of council, but she was definitely the one that had this on the agenda prior to even me knowing, because I didn't even know it until the agenda came in draft form. So to answer your question, the clerk.
Thank you.
Sure.
It seems that some on the dais are really rallying for this hotel to come in and will literally bulldoze everyone and every historic building that gets in its way. I am so thankful for the site visit to 6706 Jefferson Street. Now more than ever, I am certain that the building could be rehabilitated and preserved. This home was built in the 1890s. My home, the McCormick House, was built in 1800. It is 100 years younger than mine. Do not let dollar signs from the presentations tonight and from the campaigning of certain members distract you from the importance of preserving our history. The reason why we are here in this town is because of the beautiful historic architecture and buildings that are the heart of our town. As a liaison, I want to go over the notes from our ARB decision. The demolition application submitted to the ARB was a duplicate of the previous application submitted and denied by the ARB and Town Council earlier this year. At the June 19th meeting, the ARB discussed with the applicant the difficulty of reviewing an application to which no new information, explanation, or justification was provided. During the meeting, the ARB highlighted the basis for previous denial, namely the applicable comprehensive plan policies, zoning ordinance requirements, and ARB design guidelines to be considered when reviewing a request to demolish a historic structure. The applicant was asked to provide additional information and/or explanation regarding their request. The subsequent July 24th ARB meeting packet contained no new information from the applicant. At the meeting, the applicant generally described alternatives, although no supporting documentation was provided. Further, the town attorney's guidance was that the applicant's verbal justification of conceptual building and road designs would not be appropriate to address the criteria outlined in the zoning ordinance. An ARB analysis of the request based on the plan policies, ordinance requirements, and ARB guidelines was read into the record. With no additional time to review the application and to address precedents of the previous application, the ARB voted unanimously to deny the application based on findings for denial outlined on page 108 and 109 of the council packet. The findings note why the property is a contributing resource to the town's historic district. This is the second time that this building demolition is being appealed to the council. And for me, it makes me wonder, why do we even have an architectural review board? What is the point of having it if our jobs are undermined by the council? And it also makes me wonder, what is the point of even trying to preserve any of the history in the town if every building can be demolished? I don't understand. What is the point of working so hard and spending all of this time doing all of this research if, I mean, to me, it's starting to seem like there's really no point. The point of moving here, the appeal of Haymarket is the history and the beautiful architecture, and all of that is going to be taken away. The point of us saving that one house, even though the other houses on the same property were historic, was in an effort to work with that applicant for us to accommodate his requests and still keep a little piece of it for us. And it really seems like no one cares.
Okay.
Go ahead, Robert.
Thank you for your comments there. Councilman Day?
I certainly have the utmost respect for the ARB's decision. I know that from sitting on the ARB myself in the past, that I've also gained a respect for the passion to preserve older architecture in town, but I, based upon the what's been presented and what I have seen, I'm not sure that this building should be saved under the circumstances. However, I do have the utmost respect for the ARB's decision, and I do respect that.
Okay, before going to the second round, I think it's time for me to speak. As we go down this road, it's a venture, and I literally see tonight as a crossroad. It's a Y in the road. It's a Y where, as we look over here to our mission statement where we say, Haymarket, where a historic past and a positive future flourish. Is there a way to incorporate something as our residents have spoke, as our business stakeholders that have been around a lot longer than anybody on this dais for the town. And to me, it goes back to the condition. What is worth saving? When it came to saving, I think I might have been even a tie vote breaker when it came to what I would consider historic buildings in our town that the town owned, and that's the key part. You could put any type of money towards any type of renovation or restoration, but at what cost? At what cost is it reasonable to, unfortunately, let go and perhaps, as a resident said, you look at it on the next building to make sure that you keep that, incorporate these features, and you don't let those die. So I see this as an opportunity. As long as I've been doing this in serving the residents of the town, which, by the way, just for the note, it's not like we had a line out the door with our residents saying, keep these structures. And there again, I was one to keep the structure when I did vote on, but giving it each with the merit and value that we should be considering, that this particular structure and its condition, as even the report said, we're not even sure what's going to happen until you pull the drywall off and you look at the rot and the mildew. I think the words fair, poor are very consistent in both of the reports that have the same flavor of sure you can restore it, but at what cost? And is it fair for the property owner to bear that cost for that structure, as we've seen tonight with the different reports of how this would go? This is not St. Paul Church, and this is not Ms. Cavasso's house, which is, a beautiful home. This is not the Red House Ordinaire. So there are homes, I think, just because they're not on the list, which I'm kind of surprised too, that the old Colonel's house, which probably had the most character, maybe besides Winterham, for our town, that it's just too bad that we couldn't have saved that years and years ago. So I do have a passion. I have a passion for keeping history, and I think, but we have to definitely merit each application as it's an individual and look at and base that on. So as we get to a conclusion here, I would ask and urge each of the council members to look at the people out there in our audience, look at the residents that are expecting us to do this job. This is a hard one to do, but and listen to some of the stakeholders that have been around here, that we could possibly make this something that we could be proud of from 10, 20, 30, 50 years down the line. So with that, I'll go one more round with comments and questions and see if there's anything else.
I have nothing.
Councilman Chin, thank you. Councilman Leake?
I spoke long enough.
Councilman, do you have anything to question? Councilman Cavazos, any further questions, comments?
Just reading through my notes. One other question that the ARB had is, what precedent will an approval of a demo with little or no justification mean for future applications? Saying no to the demo means the applicant can pursue an appeal or sell or resubmit new applications to move and work with town to figure out alternatives. One other thought I have too is Susan's not here this evening, and we're not able to hear Susan's thoughts because she's not feeling well. And so another opportunity would be to perhaps table this until we can all hear Susan's thoughts and perhaps discuss it further.
Okay, then my question to you, so has Susan shared her thoughts with you at all for tonight?
No.
Councilman Shannon, has Susan shared any thoughts about tonight's meeting? No?
No.
Okay, yeah. Well, I think
She did text me to tell me she was sick and she would not be here.
Right, okay.
So,
I appreciate that we don't have one member, but I think this is a good representation of our community that elected us to make these type of decisions, and I think it's only appropriate for the applicant. He's his due diligence. Obviously, they fly from out of town to come up here to make their presentations. I think at this point that I would entertain any motion for this. Councilman Leake?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I move the town council overturn the Architectural Review Board's decision to deny the certificate of appropriateness ZP 2019-020 for 6706 Jefferson Street, thus granting approval to demolish 6706 Jefferson Street.
We have a motion on the floor. Before it could be any discussion, it would need to be seconded.
I second.
Second for discussion. So here's as it goes around, here's our last opportunity to discuss the motion, to make sure that we understand the motion, number one. So this would be to overturn their decision for denial. This would to allow the demolition for this structure to occur. Further discussion. Councilman Leake.
My only take on it is again, we have it's not an irreplaceable historic value, and to preserve the general historic atmosphere and architectural. Again, it's not Queen Anne architectural. There was nothing that's documented that states that it's a historic value like the first post office that we saved, or Holdfish House, which was the first mayor's house, things along those lines. I base this strictly based off our ordinance 58-14.9 and off the ARB's guidelines of what was necessary to be spoken and submitted. And if you look at this based off of it, the information provided by the ARB lacked the record necessary to uphold it. I mean, I went through each talking point and talked about where they were talking about how they're inconsistent. Well, that's false. And I don't need to go through that entire presentation again. But I've spoken about it, and I think that if you look at this based off its merits, as well as the structural engineer reports, I think that we're in a sound position this evening to be able to go ahead and make a decision, as well as everybody notes, that we sign within our standards of conduct. That simply states to be concise, to avoid the practice of taking more time to address an issue before the body that is necessary and essential for an adequate consideration of those matters being discussed. I think that we've had great discussion about this evening. We had 5 different meetings to go back and review and watch, 5 different meeting minutes to review, and I think that we had some great dialogue this evening. I think that we're in the position to go ahead and act on this application this evening.
Further comments or for discussion? Councilman Panthy? Further comments? Councilman Day?
No.
My final comment, we are at the Y in the crossroad. I really liked, I think, I forgot which applicant it was, our statement was, that this truly, in my belief, and as long as I've been doing this, this is truly an opportunity for the town right now, that as Kenny Chesney's song, and there's something that doesn't happen twice, and I think that explains it exactly. So with that, I will do a roll call vote.
Shannon?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Anthy?
Yes.
Cavazos?
No.
Day?
Yes.
All right, well, thank you all very much. Let me see, our next item on the agenda is our updates. We have a planning commission update.
Yes, sir. A couple things. Our chair was out last meeting, so per the attorney, we were able to vote. I was voted as the vice chair so that we could have the meeting. Michelle Williams with 6604 and 6608 Jefferson Street. We voted to move the SUP to the town council. That was the main things, I think.
Okay.
It was a quick meeting.
Sure. ARB updates, Councilwoman Cavazos.
Our ARB meeting was held on July 24th, and we denied the demolition permit for 6706 Jefferson Street. We tabled the Taco Bell application and asked them to do some edits to their design, and we approved the dental office designs at 14901 Washington Street.
Okay. Questions to either of the liaisons? Seeing none. We can do council member time now or after closed session. Why don't we just go ahead and get it done now? I think. Oh, yeah, we got time permitting too. I just want to be respectful because I know we have certain things. So I can assure you the closed session will go very quickly. This is not as we've designed and what I've sent out. We're just seeing if we got a number there or numbers that we can all agree on. So I really don't see that taking more than 5 minutes. So let's go ahead and go around for council member time. Councilman Leake?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have anything.
Councilman Shannon?
Just briefly, it's, I've said this before. I consider it an honor to sit on this dais and to serve people of our town and to work with a fellow councilman, the mayor. I feel the same pride working with the planning commission, as well as the, watching the ARB. I have so much respect for this town government. It's not easy decisions. I will tell you, when I walk off this dais, anything that was said that I disagreed with or upset me tonight stays here. I carry nothing home with me. So that's all I have.
I appreciate that, sir. Councilman Panthy, any closing comments?
No.
Councilwoman Cavazos?
No.
Councilman Day?
No, sir.
My closing comments. First and foremost, I think we kind of skipped over it, but just the tragedies that are happening throughout the United States that, we continue to pray that these incidents don't happen and why they happen, but we feel for the families, the people, the friends, and everybody that these things affect. We have, again, National Night Out coming up this week. I think what makes our community, what attracted us, there is that common thread that I think fortunately goes through each and one of our hearts as it goes around this dais. We were all attracted and are still attracted to this great town. We see that on Haymarket Day. We see that at our events where we all come together, and it truly is a community that we don't put limits. It's literally everyone's hometown. It's the people of Dominion Valley and Parks of Piedmont and our town residents that make this community what it is. And I know this was a hard decision for tonight. There again, I have sat there and argued on the other side of this coin as well. but just trying to keep that in the proper perspective. So with that, sir, if you could just bring us into closed session, and we're speaking specifically to applicants that for our business manager position.
Yes, sir. The form of the motion would be that the town council enter closed session pursuant to the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, Virginia Code Section 2.23711A1, for the purpose of discussion of candidates for appointment or selection for employment, specifically for the business manager position.
Could you also include personnel, just in case I need to venture into there?
All right, so in addition of the performance evaluation,
Town
promotion,
employees.
demotion, and so on of other town employees.
Thank you very much. Okay. With that, do I hear so moved?
So moved.
And second?
Second.
Second. Councilman Shannon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, great. We shall be right back. Thank you. All right, we're going to call our meeting back to order here. If you could be so kind, Martin, to bring us back into open session with your motion.
The motion would be that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only those business matters that were identified in the motion to enter closed session, only those items that are permitted to be discussed in closed session were heard or considered by the town council in the closed session just completed.
So moved.
All right, roll call, please.
Shannon?
Yes.
Leek?
Yes.
Anthy?
Yes.
Cavazos? Yes. Day?
Yes.
Leek?
Yes. All right, great. Do we have a form of a motion?
So with regard to the interviews for business manager, the motion, form of the motion would be that within the next 15 days, the town council will meet in closed session without further notice to the public for the purpose, sole purpose of having those interviews of candidates.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, great. I think we're there at the magic hour of the magic motion.
I will make a motion, Mr. Mayor, that we adjourn.
I adjourn. All right. I second. I second.
You adjourn too. We all
I second.
Of course, this motion is undiscussable, so no discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you all. Thank you very much.
All right. All right. Home and hit the hay.